Continuing our talks on Mahavir's thinking on non-violence. Mahavir has kept non-violence as the main method that can take you to Dharma. He said non-violence is not Dharma, but it will be a progression into Dharma. And non-violence is one of the methods. Through his introspection, he analyzed his own mind and he came to a lot of secrets that his inner mind could reveal. And he made non-violence as the main method to reach to your soul. The soul itself is so infinite and it's not within reach of any one religion. The non-violence is his method, but of course there are other methods. There is a Bhakti Marg, there is Karma Yoga, there are a lot of other methods. The age that where he lived in, he thought this was most appropriate for the people when he's to raise the awareness of the mind. So non-violence, he asked himself a question, why are we violent? The violence is hurting someone, either at the mind level or at the body level, at the ego level. All these intentions to hurt someone, whether we do a physical harm or a mental harm or through the arguments or whatever, even in a subtle way we could hurt someone indirectly, like we always talk about that you want to look the best in a party. You're not realizing that somebody who is not looking the best, maybe for various reasons, are already feeling inferior, and which you don't care. And you know, and on the contrary, you enjoy that I look better than somebody else. So these are very subtle violences that Mahavir went into. And so the Mahavir asked himself a question, why am I violent? So he came to the conclusion at the end, and one of the conclusions that our lust for life has something to do with that. Whatever we achieve in the world, once we are born, we are in the rut of acquiring things. Once we acquire, we have to go through holding on to it. And then at the end of the life, we give it away. He saw something wrong with the whole approach. He says, if we have to give it up at the end of the life, what are we really fighting for? And can we really keep it all the time? Krishna describes as yoga and kshema. Yoga is all your efforts to acquire things. And kshema is all your efforts to hold on to what you have acquired. If you really think about it, from the time you are born, we educate ourselves. We go through the whole study, very vigorous exams we have to take. All those things, we keep doing it, ultimately thinking that we'll hold on to some degree and try to acquire some money and fame and whatever. But then we are not realizing that yoga is always followed by kshema. Once you have $10 in your pocket, you have to hold on to it. And the question is, how do you hold on to it? When there is always everybody ready to take away what you have. So kshema becomes another headache. So yoga, the cycle of yoga and kshema is perpetually present till we die. And we are not realizing that yoga and kshema keeps us so occupied that we never. It is saying that your desire for the life, desire to live at any cost. Why do you want to live? Because so that you can acquire and hold and get into the cycles of yoga and kshema. But we don't see anything wrong with it. We keep on doing it because everybody else is doing it. And when everybody else is doing it, you get justified in doing that. So he's saying that you have the desire to live, and when you have desire to live, you're going to resist death at any cost. So we go through the whole life, all we are trying to do is so that we don't die. And we keep on living forever, which we all know is ridiculous to think that way. But our efforts are always geared so that we live forever. And that becomes itself our tendency that prevents us from reaching the Amrit, the amrut that is present in the life, which is our state of shunyata, we call the state of bliss, state of moksha, state of nirvana. Number one obstruction that comes is when we're trying to possess things so that we can enjoy, keep on living the life. So when we try to acquire possessions, material possessions, he calls it parigraha. And parigraha means to hold on to things. Whether we need it or not, it doesn't matter. We try to acquire things. So he calls it parigraha. He gave the name to the material possessions. And then at the mind level, we hold on to our thoughts, our beliefs, our ideas. We don't want to give up. At any cost, we want to win an argument. We like our own beliefs because we like ourselves. If our beliefs turn out to be the truth, we feel good. So who is holding on to it? Not you. It's your ego that feels good when you win the argument. So he said that parigraha can be manifested at several levels, not just at the physical level. Giving up possessions may be relatively easy. Walk away, go into the Himalaya mountains, give up all the charity away. But to give up the ideas, give up the thoughts, is very difficult. People go into the Himalayan mountains, the sadhus, and they take samadhis. But if you ask them, what are you spreading around? Hinduism. Now they are held on to the Hinduism. So their possessions are always there, whether it is mental or physical. How can a sadhu can be a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jain? If they are, they have not given up all the possessions according to Mahavir. Mahavir says, even your ideas, your thoughts are borrowed from somewhere else. Who told you are a Hindu? What philosophies that made you think that you are Hindu? And what is that you cannot give up? Even at that level, if a sadhu comes across some Muslim fakir, he is ready to fight. So Mahavir says the violence keeps on staying, even at the certain level. So we go through the life thinking that this is all we have to do. And we never ask ourselves, why should we have possessions? What is the purpose of having possessions? And if we have possession, what are we going to do with that? We never think about all those things. We keep on going as if there is no tomorrow. It becomes our tendencies. It becomes our vritti. It becomes our vasanas. Lao Tzu said in Tao Te Ching that watch your thoughts. Thoughts is the beginning, because thoughts become words. Words become action. Action becomes tendencies, which is in our words vrittis and vasanas. Tendencies decide your character, and character becomes your future. So whole gamut it goes through. It starts with a simple thinking process, and thoughts are your possessions, and you are the one who have to deal with it. If you don't, then we have a big problem, because everybody's life goes in a different directions. Sometimes it requires one revolutionary thought to change your whole life, but that only if we pay attention to our thoughts. Once Mullah was going to give a talk on dharma. He was going to the mosque to talk about the religion, and he is running and running and running, and somebody intercepts him in the market. He says, Mullah, can you just give me for 1 second, you can give me some advice on the dharma? What is dharma? He said, no, I don't have time for all that. I have to go and give a talk on the dharma, but I can't think about anything else. So a lot of times we get into the rut. It's about, you must have heard the joke on Milkha Singh, that some robbers did a robbery in his house, and he immediately found out, and he started running and running, and he reached to the police station. He says, looks like somebody has done a robbery in my house. So the police says, where is the robber? Oh, I must have outpaced him, because he must be running very slow, because I am the fastest runner in the country. Now let's wait till he comes, then we're going to show him that he should not have committed robbery. He kept on running, never thought that he was supposed to catch the thief. So the same way, we keep on running, acquiring and holding, and we never think for what. The real joy of the life comes in only we break the connections with what we are running after, because that's where we have set up our tadatmya. Tadatmya is, if you break it down, it's a Sanskrit word. Tat Atma. See, normally we have Atma, we have nothing but soul within us, but we rent our soul, literally, whether it's alcohol, whether it is drugs, or someone else, is it a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something, we allow them. They say, my Atma is being rented out to you. And then that's how we set up our Tadatmya. We become, we let them become our Atma. And at that time, we cannot come out of it. So wherever we set our Tadatmya, we keep on running after that. Our attachment is continuously with that object, a person, or a situation, thinking that they are the one who gonna give us the pleasure. But that doesn't happen. Objects keep on changing, people keep getting older, all the pleasures they were getting is short lasting, and ultimately we suffer. So we always have fantasies about life. Instead of living in the present moment, we always think that life will give me something. And we create this fantasy so well. Fantasies are better than reality. Mullah had a girlfriend once. He was writing, he had gone away. He was in a clothing salesman business, and he was gone away, but he was missing his girlfriend. So he, in those days, to write a letter. So he's writing a letter and writing a letter that I'm missing you so much. Your beautiful hair I'm missing, and your beautiful eyes I'm missing, and this and that. He keeps writing a letter till like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And while he was writing, all along, the girlfriend was really missing him. So she finally decided to come over and pay a visit. So he said, why is it taking for him to take such a long time to come home? So she goes there, and she reaches there where he was writing a letter. But the mullah is busy, writing a letter. He doesn't have time to really get up and look at it. And suddenly he looks up and he gets scared. He said, what are you? Are you a devil or something? The reality is in front of him. He doesn't want to face that. But for fantasy, the girlfriend looks so beautiful. And when she's in front of him, he gets scared. So that's all of us. We always looking for the future to get. And for that, we rely on the life. So the question is, once we have the possessions, what do we do with them? We don't know. People think that the God gave them money. God gave them a comfortable life. But then we want to make it more comfortable, make it more rich. And our desire never ends. Because if the desire ends, what else do we do? So most of the times you have to do in meditation, do nothing. That does not suit them, because we want to do something to achieve something. And that rut always goes on. So we never really think. Jesus once, saw a guy, because he was able to do the miracles. Once he gave eyesight to a blind man, and he thought that it would really put the eyesight to a proper use. The next time he passed through the village, he saw him running after prostitutes. He says, what did I do this to this guy? Why did I give the eyes to this guy? The guy gets eyes when he was blind, and what does he utilize for? So all our possessions should be utilized to reach to the higher state of awareness. Instead of that, all we do is keep on having more possessions and more possessions. So Mahavir says, this lust for life, I give up. I give up because when I get blinded by my tendency to acquire more and more and more, not only I don't reach anywhere, because at the end of the life I have to give up, but meanwhile, whoever comes in the way, I'm ready to commit the violence against them. Whoever comes in the way of my ego, I could kill, I could make them lose an argument, I can insult, I can make them look inferior. All those things at the subtle level are violences. And if after doing that, if I could reach to the shunyata, I would. But even that, only it makes me run after objects or people or situations. And meanwhile, the real life that is pulsating, like Vijay says, zeros always get missed out. Ones always stand out. The life that we know is all we are after, never thinking what we had before and what we would have after. And that state of shunyata can be achieved in its fullest joy only if you break your bondages with the material possessions that we have. If we realize and stop and think for a moment that why we are supposed to have acquisition. Mahavir has nothing against acquiring things. Mahavir has something against creating the bondages with your acquisitions. When the bondages are created, that's when you're ready to fight for it. Fine, whatever your day to day life, living style, whatever is required, you're okay. Nothing wrong with that. But your bondages is what's going to make you hurt. So, violence is ultimately used in a several ways. Ego we try to create the fear in others so that they feel suppressed, that so that they walk away from us, so we have a more chance to expand our ego. And that's so we use our ego to create, intimidate other people, put them down, make them inferior, fight all the time. Material possessions are obviously, you have a piece of land and then somebody is trying to build a hut in that or a little bit encroach, it becomes a major war. And heads can break, fights can happen, all those things. But if you really think about it, the piece of land, if it had a character, if he had some way of thinking, the piece of land is piece of land. The ownership is our idea. It's an illusion because as soon as we die, it's going to be going in the hands of somebody else. The piece of land will be thinking, okay, this guy comes in and now he's going to possess me for 20, 30 years. Now another owner is going to come, he's going to own me for 20, 30 years. But the piece of land stays exactly where it is. So in reality, in God's world, there are no possessions, there are no ownerships, but the ownership is our idea. Our ego creates the illusions of ownership because what is our life, 70, 80, 90, 100 years? In that such a short time, we think that we have built the castles where we're going to live forever. But that sense of ownership is a play of the ego. And that's how the individuals live like that, the countries live like that, the organizations live like that. And at that level, fights and wars and all those things are happening all the time. So Mahavir says that when we have attachment to the life so much, that's where the egos expand. So he says he's giving it up. And when he gives up, what he's giving up is his decision to change the life. Because if you have attachment to the life, that means you have attachment for the goodness, you have detachment from the badness, you have attachment for the sukh, you have detachment from the dukh. So all these things will prompt you to change the surroundings that you have. But when you have desire to change the life, that means your ego has expanded. So he says that I'm ready to accept life in its totality. Whatever comes in the way, I'm not going to change. Because to change it, I need my ego. I need my likes and I need my dislikes and all these things. So Lao Tzu says the same thing. When you accept life in its totality, that means you are being impartial. That's the only way you can be impartial, when you have nothing to gain and nothing to lose in front of whatever is in front of you. And when you become impartial, you're becoming part of the consciousness. Consciousness is impartial because consciousness does not differentiate between you and me. I may differentiate between you and me, but for consciousness, everybody is the same. One time there was a Sufi fakir. He moved into a neighborhood, and right next to him was an alcoholic. Every night he would come at night, 2, 3 o'clock, totally drunk, make a big mess in the neighborhood. So Sufi was praying, and he says to his Paramatma, he says, Paramatma, you have done very well. You have really helped me with the right guidance so that I can pray every day. I live the right life and all that. There is only one problem I have. This drunkard who is living right next to me, he's disturbing me so much. He takes my peace away, so I cannot meditate. So after all these years that he had never seen God, for the first time God comes in his vision. And God says that, listen, I've been putting up with this drunkard for 60 years. What is your problem? You have moved in only 6 weeks ago. So I have no problem. The existence has accepted everybody. So when we become impartial, we merge with the existence. And at the existential level, everybody is acceptable. So Lao Tzu says, and that's how you reach Tao. So Mahavir does not recommend non-violence for nothing, because only a non-violent person would be able to accept things, because he doesn't have any desires left for the life. He will be able to accept everything that is around him, and immediately he will accept whatever is happening in a totally natural sequence. Whatever is happening here doesn't have. It's the same thing as Tathata of the Buddha, and the same thing. He's the same thing. Lao Tse says the total acceptability. All, or Krishna, Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama, all the total surrender to the consciousness is what Mahavir says is the non-violence. So when you accept everything in its totality, you're also ready to appreciate the existence of everybody around you. That includes a tiny ant or any person that you're working with. Just the way you are wanting to live in a natural 100% acceptable way, they also have a right to evolve in their own 100% way. That's why there is no point in inflicting your ego on someone else. So Lao Tse says, which I wanted to say, knowing the constant means you have to have a vision of something that is constant. We know only the life that is in front of us. But when we go deeper into the meditative state and we merge with the infinite existence, that is knowing the constant. So constant is something that is always there, something that gives rise to this life, and then life becomes death, and then becomes life again. This constant perpetual cycle of life and death and life and death, the totality in a constancy is what Mahavir calls the life. For him, this is only a one blip in the billions and billions of perpetual existence. So at that level, when you merge, that's what Lao Tse says, the constant. Knowing the constant, we accept the things as they are. So we are ready to accept, because when you compare in an infinite existence, small ups and downs don't mean much, because every up is going to follow by down, every down is going to follow by up again. So knowing the constant, we accept things as they are, and by accepting things as they are, we become impartial. And by becoming impartial, we are part of the nature. Nature is impartial, like we said. And by being part of the nature, we are one with Tao. And Tao is eternal, and we survive the death. So Mahavir says, the way to win over the fear of death is to lose your grip on the life. And all these things Mahavir is doing for what? Why do we have to go through these detachments and giving up our possessions, giving up all the pleasures, the dukh and the sukh and all these things, our grief on the life, for doing what? So that you can realize the permanent bliss that's within us. To reach there, he's using non-violence as a method to reach to the soul. But we do opposite. We create our own castles, we build our own palaces, and that includes our spouse, our children, our possessions, our car, our houses. And whenever even little bit is removed, we become very upset. And what is being hurt is your ego. Your soul is never going to get hurt. But if the ego, like the spider legs, have 6 legs and one leg is broken, the spider has a problem. Until the spider knows that it can throw the silk web and connect and it can fly. But so far it was relying only on the legs. So every time a near relative dies, or you lose $5, or you overpaid a little bit, and then you get very upset, all those things bother you, because your total ego, which accounted for that $5 that you lost, still is a $5. so that $5 is gone, you get very upset, because your empire of your ego gets hurt. And that's kind of a death. Death is not to the body only, but death to your possessions. The total possessions that you had, all of a sudden you have $5 less. It could be 500, it could be 5,000, doesn't matter. It's the tendency that matters. The tendency that you cannot lose, and tendency to think that these are my possessions, is a mistake. Mahavir says it doesn't matter whether it's 1 penny or $1 million. One time there was a king who went on Nagarcharya at night, in the middle of night, just to see how his people are living. So he always saw every day, and he didn't have a courage to ask, but finally he asked. There was a one beggar sitting under a tree and widely awake all through the night. So finally, king went to him and he says, let me ask you something. I'm curious. Well, everybody's sleeping. Why are you awake? He says, I have my reasons. Look at all my possessions. If I fall asleep, somebody can steal it away. That's why I don't want to die. But during the daytime, when everybody is awake, there is a broad daylight, probably people would not have guts to steal. He says, what are your possessions? He had a rotten looking bed. He had a it's like all the possessions that they were all dirty, torn apart and everything. And he says, this you call possessions? He says, you may be a king, but these are my possessions. But even in those possessions, he's worried that somebody will not steal that away. So it doesn't matter we are really fighting to save $1, 1 penny, or $1 million. It doesn't matter. Even the kings are beggars, and beggars are of course beggars. So at the mind level, we all are poor. Whenever we are not ready to lose what we have, we are poor. We are the beggars. We are holding on to the things that we don't want to lose. So Mahavir says, give up the grip. These are not your possessions. These are the objects and people and situations. They are in continuous flux. You can never own them. When I started my practice, I used to get very upset when some patient transferred the records. That was like a big death to me. For several days I would get upset. I said, what did I do? Did not take care of them properly, or I don't know. They don't like me. Maybe I should do things or something. And one day, a very interesting conversation I had with another friend of mine who was also an internist in Montclair. He retired since then. And he didn't even know. He just made a comment, and I put that in my life. He says, patients come, patients go. They are never yours. And he made such a beautiful remark. And I said, if patients are not mine, why am I going so upset? So your possessions are never your possessions. You're holding on to them temporarily. Then all of a suddenly changed my outlook. Then I became fearless. Fine, you want records? Fine, go, no problem. Luckily it doesn't happen often. Like sometimes the other way around. I have to kick them out also. Sometimes it doesn't click. Sometimes somebody's personality doesn't click. Sometimes it's not right. So that's at a very high level, there are more complex mechanisms at place where people leave, people don't leave, doesn't matter. But what you're getting is absolute peace within you. So Mahavir says, when you're attached to the possessions, you're losing your peace. And when you lose your peace, you cannot reach to the final, your inner soul. And possessions, if that's all they were ending at the object's level, will still understandable. But we extend our egos and we try to control each other, if not at the physical level, at the mental level. Husbands trying to control wives. Of course, wives try to control husbands. All this goes on for a whole life. Never think that controlling itself is what creating the friction. Because if husband tries to control wife, he's trying to expand his ego, because now supposing the wife does become agreeable to be controlled by the husband, his ego is expanding. Now his palace is getting bigger of the ego, so he becomes very happy, but not realizing that we are not talking about possessing a dollar bill. We are talking about a wife who is a conscious human being. She also has her own set of minds and ideas and beliefs. So control that becomes tough, and of course husbands know that too. So the friction goes on, never realizing the basic mistake is the ego, where we're trying to control somebody else. And supposing he does become unsuccessful and the wife becomes successful and wife controls the husband, but that also they use the argument that, okay, we want to be equal. So far for millions of years, husbands have control. It's a male-dominated society. Now we want to be equal. But even that would have been good, but not realizing that the female dominance also is not going to stop. It's going to go on. And then the males will become inferior. And then the males will have to fight that, no, we are the same as women and all that. So the fight, the friction goes on all the time. Same thing happens in a factory. The workers, they feel inferior. So they try to get the rights, they form the unions, and the boss, they come in front of the boss and they say, now we are this many people strong. And then say, okay, now onwards, all the things that's going on in a factory will happen based on what we say and this and that. So you realize there is a continuous friction of the ego, but then the people who belong to the union leaders become the new kings. Now things happen according to their ideas and all this. So now the workers, before they were serving the boss, now they're serving the union leaders. The same thing happens in communism. In communism, they say, oh, we are supposed to create the equal society. But who's going to create the equal society? The leaders are there to create the equal society. So all of a sudden, leaders, we have to listen to whatever the leader says. So we have created another layer. And one layer is inferior than the other. Exactly the same thing that we were trying to avoid. So say, oh, in the democracy, okay, so democracy think is good, I think again. Now we have politicians making the laws. So Mahavir is not so much in running the society, in equalizing in any way. He says that equalization has to come from within. When you have the joy of becoming infinite, you are so satisfied that you would respect your wife or your husband, to that matter, to your workers or your citizens. An enlightened politician would have no problem in giving the fair chance to everybody. He would not consider himself above the rest of the crowd. So the egos have to be gotten rid of. When the egos go away, you realize your infinite potential, infinite existence, and it gives you so much happiness in that equibalanced state of mind. If you treat your spouse, if you treat your children, we will be generating a beautiful generation which is based on equality, but that has to come from within. So Mahavir says that violence is happening everywhere. All the wars we are committing, that's one thing, but that's not where it ends. People are being insulted. Our egos create the inequality. When Osho says a child is born, every single child is beautiful. We create the ugly children. We have audacity to decide that this child is beautiful and this child is not. Our dirty minds create the discrepancies in the society. So a well-balanced, a samyak state of samadhi, if it can be reached through the Mahavir's way, we will be respecting everybody. We will not be hurting them at any level. So that's why Mahavir says having ego is violence. And he wants us to be non-violent. So the number one thing you have to do is give up the ownership. You have to understand that there is nothing yours and nothing will be yours. The only thing that's yours is you, yourself, your soul. Your soul is yours and nothing else, and something that nobody can take it away. But to realize and to reach that level, non-violence, how we practice on a day-to-day basis, we need awareness. By doing the meditation, just sitting 15-20 minutes and in a quiet place, it's not meditation. Even reaching to the shunya state is not enough. Shunya state has to be put to work. Shunya state is a state of infinite existence. Compare yourself that everybody wants to reach Paramatma, but nobody wants to behave like Paramatma. If you want to reach Paramatma, Paramatma needs a best friend within you. And that you have to act like Paramatma. For you, everybody should be equal. You have to analyze your every single behavior that you're doing in a day-to-day life. And analyze at the end of the day, did you behave like Paramatma? Is your action divine or not? And that requires a lot of awareness. And that's why we need to do the meditation. So once you say that nothing is mine, that's the first time the revolution will happen. Whatever your possessions are, whatever your relatives are, whatever your spouses and all your friends are, and including to the point that even my body is not mine, even my mind is not mine, even my thoughts are not mine. And then when everything is removed, and what is left is you. That's your infinite soul that you can feel yourself, but not just saying it, but really firmly realizing it, that all these possessions are never yours. And when you firmly believe that this is not mine, everything that was given to you can be also taken away. Your parents were given to you, your social security number was given to you, even your clothes that you were wearing as a kid were given to you because the society could not stand you the way you were. So all those things were, as soon as you die, your social security number will be recycled, will be given to somebody else. Nothing is yours. What is yours? Wives come, wives go, and people lose their whole life's peace thinking that they have lost something. What is feeling is the ego. When you transcend the ego, you are realizing that that loss was never a loss because it was never a gain in the first place. So whenever you acquire relationship, whenever you acquire friendship, always consider that as temporary. It's coming, it will go. That's fine too. So the life does not remain necessarily a source of pleasure. You don't have to have 30, 40, 50 friends to call yourself a most popular person and all these things. And you don't have to have X amount of dollars in your bank to consider yourself. Then you are relying on the society to consider yourself worth something. You are worth, every single Atma is worth everything. That's why Mahavir always said, Atma is Paramatma. What else do you need? So that's the realization that we need to happen. So Mahavir put the non-violence at 3 different levels. One was the gross physical level. He called it parigraha. He said we should practice aparigraha. That means do not consume that you do not need. But we always keep on expanding more and more and more. Even though we don't need that, we keep on making efforts to acquire. Once I was in that India Day show or something in Edison. The India Day was one of the days, right? So there were like millions of people out there and all that, right? And one of the stall, they were giving out some bags, shopping bags or something, made out of jute. And my God, there were like probably 40 or 50 jute bags sitting there. There were like 200 people trying to acquire that and fighting and this. And I said, every single person probably can afford a lot more than this, but they had to fight for it. Small, silly little things, they get involved. Forget about that. When we used to have a lot of medical meetings, right? And you think doctors would be wiser. Think again. For pens and pads and coffee mugs and things like that, people were fighting like crazy. Unbelievable. I said, these people can afford millions of this, but when it's coming free, they want to have it. They want to expand. Now I have it. I feel good. Ego is playing at a very subtle level. Same thing.
Doctor लोग ऐसा करते हैं क्या?
Of course, doctors are human beings too.
You feel good
Ego,
now? You feel good now?
ego does not leave anybody. Ego is living at a very subtle level. It doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter. So at the gross physical level, he said, aparigraha is the key to do. Another thing he said, at the life level, at the total life level, he said, give up the lust for life. So you accept the death in its totality. If the death comes, you are prepared for it also. Because life could not give you anything that is worthwhile. So at the life level, he realized the lust for life has to be given up. And at the thought level, he said also, thoughts are your possession. He was the first philosopher, in a way, that he gave the mechanical, material nature to the thoughts. He says thoughts are material. And you can literally act as if you are possessing your thoughts. And in practicality, we know that. People fight for their ideas. Patented, right? Muslim, Hinduism, all those ideas. Man created those religions, but we were not born with a Muslim written on our head or Hindus, right? But we walk around. Who put those ideas in our head? Our parents and mandirs, you go to the temples and all the preachers, and they put it right from the birth, so that you grow up thinking that this is. So what is that? That is again came from outside. Now you're walking around with it thinking that this is my possession, I can fight for it even. And all those ideas are set, oh, America is a democratic country, God bless America. What's wrong with Iranian people? Why? They are not people? Why, the God should be only for Americans, not for Iranians? Granted, the politicians probably doing it, but why hate the people? But it goes on. So even thoughts can be part of your possession. That's why Mahavir had created coined a word called Shadvad. Shadvad meaning shayad, maybe. Shayad. He created a Shayad Vyad. We call Shayad, he calls Syad. Shadvad is where I am not fighting for my thoughts. Because the truth, the consciousness is so big. For one person to express it in one idea is not possible. So I could be wrong. Another person could be right. We don't know. Supposing if somebody comes to me and says, ask Mahavir that is moksha. He says, maybe, maybe not. What is your level of thinking? But if he had said, yes, there is, he never wanted to have such a firm idea because he never gave that much importance to his ideas that I could be wrong, the other person could be right. Also, if he said firmly, yes, there is moksha, and the guy comes with a preconceived idea, there is no moksha, this and that, he will make it a point to fight again. Again, his ego versus someone else's ego. He did not want to even have that much ego to firmly, not that he did not know. He knew the moksha was there, but he did not want to make it a point. On the contrary, he said that maybe gives him a chance to start a dialogue with someone else. That, okay, what do you think? So healthy conversation could take place. Maybe 10 days later, they could be friends. And that's exactly happened. His first shishya was Gautam. Gautam was Buddha's. Mahavir's was Goshalak. So Goshalak was a Brahmin. And he had acquired tremendous control on all the Shastras. And he had so much scriptural knowledge that he came to defeat Mahavir. And that's exactly how the Mahavir discussed with him. And all the discussions that he went through this and that, and finally there was something that he was thinking, and Mahavir says, even that is wrong. He says, how could you tell what I was thinking? He says, there is a world that is beyond what you speak and what you talk about. That's the world of thoughts and beliefs and ideas. Those are more ordinary possessions. But until you go beyond, you cannot know what the mind is capable of. The clairvoyance, the transmitting the knowledge, because the thing is, the consciousness is beyond the four limits that you're having, the four dimensions that we have: height, width, depth, and the time changing everything adds the fourth dimension. Now, when we want to speak something, the consciousness that is beyond the dimensions, because it's beyond your senses, beyond your mind, beyond your body, beyond everything, now you're fitting it, it's in a fifth dimension, you're trying to put in a fourth dimension. How is it possible? Now, if somebody, say for example, animal, has no sense of time, and you're trying to explain the time to the animal, it will never get it, because they don't have the mind strong enough to understand the flow of the matter that is happening. But it will be very difficult. Same thing if you go into another universe where they have only two dimensions, the width and depth. So then it will be very difficult for you to explain to them the third dimension, that no, we have also depth also. So all these things becomes tricky. So that's why Mahavir says that whatever you say, by the time you say it, comes out wrong. And what is the guarantee? So that I will be able to put whatever I know into the words. And supposing I did it, first of all, that would be wrong, or it may not be 100% correct. What is the other person's capacity? What is the state of mind of another person that he will be able to grasp all these things that I'm trying to say? So that's why he says going within and experiencing your own soul is where you're going to get the final answers. Otherwise, we are only staying in the periphery. Chapchabiya. We are doing it in a kiddie pool. We are not into the depths of the ocean. So Mullah had a habit of not believing anybody. Any arguments, Mullah says, no, that's not true. So everybody started, having problems with Mullah because he would not believe anything that you say. So little by little, talk went to the king. King says, that's not right. I'm going to fix Mullah. So he calls Mullah to the darbar. He says, come on, I heard that you don't believe anything. You just say outright, everybody is wrong. He says, yes, you have correct. He says, what about my thoughts? That's wrong. He said, king said, I didn't even say anything. He said, doesn't matter, just because it's coming from you, it's wrong. Because whatever I say is correct. Again, ego versus ego. So king says, that's not right. But he saw some potential in mullah. He says, that kind of dynamic person I need to hire. So he hires him. As soon as he starts getting his first paycheck, he says, whatever king says, yes, I believe it. He says, king says, what happened? He says, well, now I'm working for you, right? So he says, okay, so keep working and let's see what happens. I want to see your potential in Darbar. So one day, the chef made bhindi ki sabji, right? So king loved it. So he asked mullah, what do you think? Oh, Amrit, very good, very nice. I never had tasted such a bhindi ki bhaji before that. So when the chef heard that, the next day he made the same thing. And third day, the fourth day, then king suddenly noticed that we've been eating the same sabji every single day. He gets up and throws the plate away. He says, horrible. What do you think, mullah? Yeah, it's poison. So mullah, he says, mullah, you just said 3 days ago that it was amrit. And all of us are telling, yeah, I'm working for you, not for bhindi. So all of a sudden opinions change. He says, but you put up with me. This is the way I am now. But if you fire me, think again. I'm going to be opposing you again. So we hold on to our thoughts and we fight for it. And that's why the real truth of life always stays hidden, always eludes us. We can never find the truth. So Mahavir says, give up the tendencies. Realize that whatever is outside, whatever is other than your soul, is only a temporary situation that life has created. And whenever the life gives you, life can also take it away. I have at least once or twice a week people coming in crying, they lost their brother, they lost their father, lost their mother, and suffering is always there. Dukh is always there, Buddha said. Life is full of dukh. So the path of Mahavir is the path of non-violence, where do not try to acquire anything, no possessions, do not try to control anybody else by your ideas or physically, and also think that once you do these things, and once you give up your contact and bondages with not people, not just the people, object, situation, but also your thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and stay calm, then you can enter into the kingdom of Dharma. So Mahavir says, Ahimsa, Sanjamo, Tavo. Ahimsa, Sanyam, and Tap. So far we talked about Ahimsa, which is non-violence. Sanyam is the connection. Ahimsa is the center, is the soul of Dharma for Mahavir. Sanyam is your control, how you're manifesting your actions. And the Tap is the outside your manifestations, your actions into the world. So Ahimsa is the center, Sanyam is the bridge, and Tap is the outside actions. So this is the method we're going to go. Now next time we're going to talk about Sanyam. So much for today.
आज बड़ा समझ में आया।
तो और सब लेक्चर तो पानी में गए ना।
नहीं